My daughter sent me a voice note meant for her husband. And the first words were, "If you drug me again tonight, Caleb, make sure your mother films it better for the judge." The knife fell out of my hand and clattered on the tile. The onions were burning. My tea went cold. And my heart learned a new kind of silence, the kind you only meet when you realize the danger isn't outside your door. It's at your table. It's in your family. I stood there, in my tiny kitchen with the crooked clock, and played it again from the beginning, just to make sure my own ears weren't lying. Her voice, paper thin but steady. The way she said again. The way she said judge. "Oh, Maya," I whispered to an empty room that had seen me raise her with casseroles and apologies. What did they do? I didn't call her. Not then. Not with my head shaking like a string of bells. You'd think a mother would grab a purse and a prayer and run, and I've done that before. But this time, I could feel something old and precise rising in me, an instinct I had buried under church programs and nice recipes. You can't run at a snake and expect it to stand still. You watch. You learn the shape of the coil. You look for the trail of shed skins it leaves behind. The voice note went on, because of course she had more to say. "I saw the guardianship paperwork, Caleb," she whispered. "Your mother left it on her printer. Emergency. You wrote I'm erratic. You wrote I'm unstable. You attached videos of me sleeping. You're drugging me. I know you are. If you go through with this, I will call the compliance line at your bank, and I will tell them about Noah's trust." Noah. My grandson. The little weight that made my arms feel like wings again. I pressed my hand to my mouth. The message ended with 3 small breaths. One of them sounded like a sob. One sounded like the tail end of anger, the part where a flame licks and refuses to go out. The last sounded like a goodbye that didn't yet know if it was allowed to be goodbye. I set the phone down. Flattened the slick paper where my grocery list had curled up and tried to hide under itself. And I wrote, guardianship. Emergency. Printer, videos, sleeping. Again. Drugging. What? How? Bank. Compliance line. Noah's trust, Vivian. I know her type. Smile like a blade, quiet. Move like a cat. I wish I could tell you I'm a saint, the kind of mother who instinctively makes the right call every time. I am not. I am a woman who stayed with a charming liar because he danced nice with me in the kitchen and paid the electric bill on the last day. I left only when my daughter looked at me with a small, peeled look in her eyes and said, "Mom, you're so tired." I did not want to teach her that love and fear are cousins, and here we were. Her voice in my phone. A marriage that had grown different teeth once a baby arrived, and a mother-in-law who made kindness look like a contract. I texted Maya just one sentence, "Do you want me to come?" I watched the screen in the kind of stillness that feels like a test you didn't study for. The 3 dots bobbed, disappeared, came back. Then, "I can't talk now. Vivian is here. Bring soup?" I could bring soup. I could bring more than soup. On the shelf by the sink was the jar I keep for emergencies that require cash, not conversation, the few 20s I put away when the world looked at me sideways. I took the jar. I took the old tote bag with the faded grocery store logo. I took the recipe card my mother wrote out when life tasted bitter and she taught me how to sweeten things back up. Lemon chicken soup. It smells like home. It hides nerves. It gets you through a door when the door would rather stay closed. I cooked like a woman on trial. I boiled and chopped and pretended my hands weren't shaking. I added lemon and dill because those say, "No, we are not worried. We believe in flavor and peace." I tucked a little pen recorder, plastic and cheap, into the pocket of my cardigan. My friend Denise had told me about them once when we were sitting in a laundromat watching the dryer eat her quarters. "You never know," she said, like she was telling me a recipe. I tucked another one into the lining of the tote. Just behind the seam where it had started to fray. By the time I pulled up in front of Maya's house, my tea had been cold for an hour. And some part of me I thought I'd retired, a part with a spine like a ruler, had put her hair up and tightened her laces. Maya's porch smelled like eucalyptus. The wreath was the kind you buy at a store that sells clean lines and costs too much. There was a camera tucked under the eaves. I pretended not to see it. I'm old enough that people think I don't know what I know. Vivian opened the door before I could ring. She's the kind of woman who always knows when your hand is on the knob. Pearl earrings, soft sweater, lips finding the exact color that says I am gentle and I eat people. "Eva," she said warmly. "What a nice surprise. We were just going down for a nap." "We?" I asked with a smile like a handshake that got your thumb instead of your fingers. "Maya and the baby, of course." Postpartum rest is crucial. Mothers everywhere have been flopping on couches for centuries, I said. Soup? She stepped aside and let me in. The house smelled like citrus and bleach. Bleach has a smell that tries too hard. Citrus pretends to be sunlight and forgets its appeal. Noah's little hat was on the arm of the sofa, tiny eared thing that made my throat thick. The baby monitor on the table blinked like a lizard's eye. On the counter, a pill organizer with the days marked in hips of blue. On the refrigerator, a schedule printed on fancy paper, Noah's routine, and underneath it, another, Maya's care plan. I made the soup you like, I said loud enough for anyone listening. Lemon, dill. I like everything that comes out of your kitchen, Vivian said, and you'd think she believed it. Where is she? Resting. Vivian's voice softened the way people's voices do when they want to make you smaller. She gets overwhelmed. We're trying something to help. I walked to the nursery like I had been summoned by something small and holy. You learn to walk quietly when you've lived with someone who could turn a step into a sin. Maya sat in the rocking chair with her head tipped back and her eyes open. Noah was breathing on her chest, that warm, wheezy puff that babies do. She saw me and did not cry. She only pushed her mouth into a line that might have been relief, might have been anger, might have been both. I bent low and spread the blanket over Noah's feet. The way you do when it's not really cold but you want to say I know you're here. I touched Maya's hair. She closed her eyes and leaned into my hand so briefly I could have imagined it. Soup? I said, the way I'd said it to Vivian. A code. I brought a spoon to her mouth like she was a child and we were playing hospital. She took a sip, closed her mouth around the spoon, and nodded toward the closet. I moved slow, like I was looking for a diaper. I opened the closet just enough for my hand to slip in. The air was stale, and it smelled like dust and cedar. And there, on the top shelf, the printer box that had been opened and pushed back like a memory. Vivian's printer. Maya had said, printer. I slid my hand under the plastic wrap and felt paper, a manila folder, thumbnail thick. I pulled it to the edge, pressed my recorder's tip against it, and took photos with my phone tucked low as if I were checking a message. In that sliver of closet, I saw the words they hoped a stranger would believe. Emergency guardianship petition. Petitioner, Vivian Hart. Respondent, Maya Hart. Words like erratic, unsafe. Postpartum psychosis, endangering infant. There were screenshots of texts, cropped so you couldn't see both sides. There was a list of incidents, and in my throat, something old curled in on itself and prepared for heat. I folded the folder back into the printer box. I stepped out. I put my mouth near my daughter's ear like I had when she was 10 and we were whispering about nothing in the grocery store just because it felt dangerous. I'm here, I said. I heard the message. She inhaled. Then, don't say anything. Barely sound. Then, with a little more truth, under my sink. I kissed her forehead, the same spot I'd memorized when she was new and my borderline language mother taught me to say prayers like I was stirring soup. Then I walked into her kitchen and opened the cabinet under the sink. The chicken soup steam hugged my face when I bent down, and there, nested against the pipe with a piece of black tape, a dot. Small. Unassuming. Watching. I took the dot. I set it on the counter and put a spoon next to it like it was part of lunch. I took the flash drive recorder from my cardigan, clicked it on, and set it in the fruit bowl under an aging pear. The house hummed with the kind of quiet that runs a little too smooth. Vivian was humming, too, something classical and upbeat enough to set your teeth. Somewhere, a phone buzzed. Would you like me to put the soup in the fridge? I asked, and watched her face like a weatherman. Thank you, she said brightly. It will be perfect for later. When I left that house, I was carrying less than when I went in. The soup stayed. Accuracy stayed. But in my bones, a plan was sitting up and stretching. I'm not good at pretending to be a spy. I'm good at casseroles and funerals, at holding a hand while you get the bad news, at making a bed so tight you feel safe inside it. But I know a network when I see one, and I know how to wire mine, woman to woman. I called Denise. She didn't say hello, only, what's wrong? I told her the voice note. I told her the dot and the printer and the little white squares in the organizer. Postpartum psychosis my foot, she whispered. You bring me one of those pills on the bottle, and I'll ask my nephew. He's in pharmacy school. He owes me for the time I didn't tell his mother about the beer in his trunk. I texted Ruth from church who sits on the family court bench of our tiny county and never puts cream in her coffee because she says, sweetness is for later. I didn't tell her everything because you don't put blood in a text. I asked about emergency guardianships, what judges look for, where the potholes are. She said, if there's CPS involvement, I can't talk to you. If there's not, I can tell you that evidence matters and so does who looks calmer. Calmer? I said, hearing my own old anger flare up like bad kindling. I did not say nicer, Eva. I said calm. Keep your face steady. Make your papers neat. If there's drugging, get test results. If there's a video, keep the originals. If you are tempted to throw something, throw it into a folder. I wrote, throw it into a folder, on my list. I drove by the pharmacy. I bought a tube of diaper cream because you never leave a store with just a covert mission. I waited long enough to watch Vivian's car leave Maya's driveway, white SUV, unbothered. I pulled in. Maya let me in with the chain on, like a woman who is learning to be careful. Under my sink, she said. In the toothpaste box. Her voice trembled on the second syllable like a violin string. I opened the box. Inside, a bottle with her name on the label. Lorraine's, the last letters were smudged. As needed. The pills inside were chalky moons. I haven't taken them in 2 days, she whispered, almost proud of herself, maybe defiant, maybe both. He thinks I have. He watches me. I put it under my tongue and toss it in the plant when he goes for water. We looked at the plant, a ficus that had not agreed to be a pharmacy. Its soil dotted with pale lies. I took 1 pill and put it in a plastic sandwich bag. I photographed the lot number and the doctor's name. I put the bottle back exactly where it had been. I kissed my daughter's cheek and Noah's forehead. I didn't cry. You save crying for when it will do some good. Alone, with a kettle. Not here. The next day I started my morning by calling the pediatrician. Not the one they liked. Not the one Vivian always bragged about on Facebook. I called Dr. Jane, the one who saw me at the free clinic when my ex broke my rib and I told her I fell. She never said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Do you feel safe going home?" Women remember the ones who ask the right question. I said, "Can you see my grandson today? His mother needs a note for her file that says she's doing the things they say she is not." Dr. Jane said, "Come in. Don't bring an army. Bring the baby. Bring the mother. Bring the truth." We went. Maya sat on the crinkly paper and looked like a girl who'd slept on a train. Dr. Jane checked Noah's weight, his grip, his eyes. "You are loving this baby," she said to Maya, and Maya made a face like someone had pulled a splinter without pain. "You are tired and you are being made to feel crazy. Here," she said, scribbling, "is a note that says postpartum depression is not the same as unfit. Here is another that says sedation can mimic symptoms of depression. Here is a third with the number of a counselor who doesn't take insurance. Because she's already paid by the women who survived and decided to sponsor other women's second chances." We tucked those notes in a folder that had been holding my birth certificate and a few old photographs. "Throw it into a folder," I heard Ruth say, and I did. Denise's nephew confirmed what I already knew and what I needed on paper. "Benzodiazepine," he emailed, going on to say things I didn't need to know except, "This is not a vitamin, Auntie. This dosage will make you sleep. A judge who meets a woman on this will think she lives underwater." We printed that, too, and then I made what felt like a bold move and was probably only a kitchen one. I invited Vivian to tea. "My mother taught me to make scones that solve arguments," I said into the phone with my favorite fake laugh. "Bring Caleb. Bring your schedules. Let's figure out a system where Maya gets her rest without the rest of us losing our minds. This weekend, before the baby dedication at church? We're all tired. Let's be civilized." "Baby dedication," she echoed, and her voice lit up with the part of her that loves a program. "Yes, yes. Scones. Systems. So wise, Eva. You always were. Let me check with Caleb. He has things. Things. The word men use when they don't want to say meetings that sound important. I made scones. I set out butter in the little dish only my mother bothered to polish. I put earplugs in my ears of the emotional kind, because there is a tone some women use that will make you want to take your blouse off and fight in the yard. They came in their roles. Vivian, bright and helpful, a file folder under her arm. Caleb, tie in his pocket pretending to be relaxed. Maya, held together by hairpins and the hope that this would be the day where the tide turned. We sat. We buttered. We pretended. "Let's make a plan," Vivian said effusively, and her hands fluttered like she was performing restoration. "A calendar. A schedule. Boundaries, she sang, as if the word itself did the heavy lifting. We can take the baby 2 nights a week so Maya can focus on self-care. We've got a safety net. We? I asked sweetly. Family, she said, as if family automatically made every plan holy. Caleb smiled. He did it the way men smile when they're selling you a vehicle you don't need. And maybe next month we can talk about, an extended rest for Maya. There's a place, my mom found it, beautiful grounds. Quiet. No pressure. Gentle staff. They focus on women who need a reset. Like a spa. For the mind. A spa, I said. I sliced a scone open like it had wronged me. Delicious. Just for a week or 2, Vivian added, too fast. We'll take Noah in the meantime. You'll still see him. Of course. Maya's hand found mine under the table and squeezed in a code we made up when she was a child at the dentist. 3 squeezes. Don't cry out, I smiled and turned the conversation like a woman turning a roast to keep it from burning. Speaking of family, I saw the sweetest photo yesterday. My friend in accounting, Sandra? She's on the board at your bank, Caleb. She posted a picture from last year's ethics breakfast. So fancy. I tilted my head. Do you two ever get invited to that? Caleb blinked the way people blink when the floor shifts under their chairs. Sometimes. I'm in compliance. So. Yes. Compliance, I repeated, letting the syllables roll around like something small in a jar. I never knew what that meant. I'm learning. Vivian's fingers tightened on her file folder. Her smile came pressed out of a machine. Eva, dear, you seem tense. I'm tired, I said honestly. That's what we're all saying, yes? Tired mothers. Tired grandmothers. Tired babies. I poured tea. I poured more. I let the conversation swirl without drowning us. When they left, they took 2 scones and, I think, a little unease, the baby dedication was set for Sunday. Vivian had made the program herself and printed it on cardstock with doves. She had the pastor approve a segment where family would read blessings. She planned to speak. I found out because she left the proofs at the church office where the secretary, Gloria, is my neighbor and also the keeper of secrets. Are you okay with this? She asked, sliding the program under a stack of hymnals as if it were porn. I'll adjust, I said calmly, and wrote Sunday on my list. I printed copies of what mattered. The drug confirmation. Dr. Jane's notes. The cropped guardianship petition photos placed next to the uncropped texts Maya had on her phone, which showed that half the time she was erratic, she was trying to stop crying long enough to say, "Please stop filming me." I slid the little black dot into a baggie. I burned a copy of the voice memo to a CD because I am old and it made me feel like I could hold it. I put everything in a binder, no jazz, just tabs. Saturday night, I made soup again because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. Maya came with Noah, and we sat on the floor with toys that squeaked and told each other the truth and didn't make it sound pretty. What if it doesn't work? She asked. Behind her eyes, the question was bigger. What if I'm still alone even after I say it out loud? Then we try again, I said. We keep trying until trying is the same as winning. At church, Sunday morning, Vivian wore dove gray silk and a necklace that sat exactly at the bone where you decide you are a person. Caleb wore a tie that said boyish and eyes that said calculating. Maya wore a pale blue dress I bought for her when we thought marriage was a dance and not a test. I wore black, not because I was mourning, but because it looks like armor on women who use it right. The sanctuary smelled like old wood and lilies. Noah made the kind of noise babies make when they decide the world is a good place after all. People cooed. People squeezed hands. The choir hummed something that promised peace in exchange for honesty. The blessing segment came. Vivian glided to the podium and tapped the microphone as if waking it up. Family, she said. It's a word that holds us. We are so blessed to support our Maya as she navigates a season that can be challenging. Motherhood. It makes you soft. It makes you strong. We're here to set up what's best for Noah. Safety. Stability. Love. She said love like a lawyer. She said safety like a threat. I felt my spine straighten itself like a ruler pulled out of a drawer. I felt my mother's hands press into my shoulders the way they did when I went to my first school dance and she said, "Stand up. You're allowed to be 2 inches taller than you were told." The pastor nodded to me. I had not signed up to speak. I had asked him yesterday, quietly, if I could say something, and he had frowned like a man who sees rain on a wedding day. then nodded like a man who knows how to move chairs indoors. I walked up. My shoes made a soft sound on the carpet that felt like announcement. I set my binder gently on the lectern, opened it, flipped to the CD. I did not look at Vivian. I did not look at Caleb. I looked at my daughter and at my grandson. And at the light coming through the stained glass in slices that made dust look like stars. "My name is Eva," I said, and my voice did not tremble. "I am Maya's mother. I am Noah's grandmother. And I am here to bless him with the one thing we should promise every child, the truth." The room changed temperature. You can feel it, if you've ever stood in a place where people thought the script was going one way and you turned it. Bodies lean in or away. Throats tighten. Hearts decide whether to sprint or study. I pressed the little button I had arranged with Gloria to cue. The sanctuary speakers were used to organ and choir. They held their breath for a voice memo played into a microphone like a secret finally given a permission slip. "If you drug me again tonight, Caleb, make sure your mother films it better for the judge." Gasps have a flavor. This one tasted like lemon rind and electricity. Vivian's smile died. The pastor's eyebrows climbed. Maya did not bow her head. She looked up. It would have been enough to make a scene. It would not have been enough to win. So I did what Ruth told me to do. I threw the rest into a folder. I lifted the black dot, sealed in its bag, and held it between my fingers like a bug I had trapped. "When surveillance crawls into a home," I said, "it starts to think it's welcome. It isn't." I turned a page. Here is a drug confirmation from a pharmacist that says the pills Maya was given would make her less herself. Here are Dr. Jane's notes saying depression is not danger and sedation is not medicine for a mother who needs sleep and support. Here are text messages unedited, where Maya says, "Please don't film me," and the device keeps rolling anyway. In the third pew, a man coughed the way men cough when they are embarrassed for themselves but pretend to be embarrassed for someone else. I did not yell. I did not accuse with my hands. I just told the story with paper. "Here is an emergency guardianship petition with half the truth and therefore all the harm," I said. "Here are the bank statements that show money moved from a baby's trust into a shell company that spells his grandfather's name wrong to look like a typo." Caleb took a step. He opened his mouth. This is a blessing," I said. "The blessing is, we will not be quiet." Vivian hissed, an actual hiss, like air leaving a tire. "This is a church, Eva." "It is," I said. "And we all just promised to raise this child in the truth." The doors at the back opened. I had not planned the timing so theatrically. The universe sometimes does an encore. In walked Officer Morales, not in uniform but with her badge on. A chain, because she is also Gloria's sister and she does not let anyone mess with babies. She took a seat quietly in the back. It was the sort of seat that says, "I am only here if you need me." "You will probably need me," Maya stood. She did not wait for an invitation. She took Noah in her arms. "I love my son," she said, looking at no one but him. "I will not leave him. I will not sign papers crafted by fear and flourished by a reputation that thinks it's more important than our everyday kindness. I will go to the doctor. I will take vitamins and naps and advice. I will not take pills that make my husband's case." She looked at the pastor. "I will accept prayers that don't turn into gossip." The room held still. It takes a second for sound to rise when a woman puts her stake in the ground. Then, one by one, women cleared their throats. Women are an orchestra when they decide to be. Vivian collected herself and walked down the aisle like she was the mother of the groom again. She got near the front, finger pointed, mouth set, and stopped because Officer Morales stood without moving forward and somehow blocked a path with faith. "We are done here," Vivian said coldly. "Maya, you are coming with me." "I am not," Maya replied calmly, and she leaned against me, and we became the height of a wall. That Caleb started making calls on his phone like a man who thinks other men will do his bidding. They didn't. Because after the service, in the room off the fellowship hall where we keep the coffee urns and the bad cookies, Officer Morales sat with us and with Vivian and with Caleb and the pastor, and she wrote things down. Things sound different when a pen is moving. Words pace themselves. Threats run out of AIR.in the days that followed. It was messy the way the best things are messy. 2 CPS workers came with their clipboards and their faces that managed concern and neutrality like a balancing act. We handed them our folder and our coffee and our comm. They saw the dot. They saw the drug notes. They saw Noah eat and Maya smile at the right things and sleep when the baby slept because no one was dissolving tablets into warm milk. They asked to see where the guardianship petition had been found. Vivian tried to be helpful by being in charge. It made her look like a woman who is always in the room where things go wrong but never officially the reason. The judge called us into a hearing that smelled like wood polish and determined silence. Ruth did not sit at the bench for our case. She came and put a hand on my shoulder beforehand and said, "Calm faces, full folders," and I said, "I made that my screensaver." We told the truth. Caleb told a different one. Vivian tried to make hers louder, thought perhaps the volume button would replace missing facts. The judge did the thing judges do when they are pretending to write and are actually thinking, head tilted, pen at attention. "Petition denied," he said finally. Immediate review of pharmaceutical management. Supervised visitation for the father pending investigation. No unsupervised time for the grandmother until the matter of the recording device and the veracity of the alleged incidents is resolved. It is both less and more dramatic than a movie. You don't get a swell of music. You get a click as the clerk stamps something and a whirl as someone runs copies and the whisper of your own breath shaking in your chest, "Slower now." Caleb tried to smooth it in the hallway. He caught up to us outside the courtroom and reached out. His face was the face he wore when he slipped me the money for the food truck at the wedding and said, "This is my gift to you, Eva." I used to think he was generous. I now think he likes to own joy so he can ration it. "You didn't have to do it this way," he said. "Then why did you?" I asked, his mouth opened. Maybe a fish that had been told it was a bird. He didn't answer. He walked away. Vivian's shoes clicked behind him. The clicks sounded mad, then small. We didn't celebrate with champagne. We went home and made grilled cheese with tomatoes like we used to when money was a story we told ourselves to keep from crying. Noah fell asleep with butter on his cheek. Maya put her head in my lap while the dishwasher hummed, and she said, "I forgot what quiet sounded like," and I rubbed her back and thought, "You will remember again. We will make a playlist called Quiet." There were letters after. Vivian wrote one that started with "Dear" and ended with "Regret," and in between held so many legal phrases it could have passed a bar exam. I did not respond. Caleb texted, "Can I see him?" first with bravado, then with a photo of a teddy bear from the day the baby was born, as if babies keep calendars based on plush. He saw Noah with a supervisor in the corner, and he cried in a way that felt real and also late. The bank moved fast when I called the ethics line, faster when they realized a donation had been made to a foundation that had a name suspiciously like the one in his mother's maiden dream. They asked for the folder. I pared it down and gave them only what concerned their house. Women can fight on more than one front, we just shouldn't have to. The apology never came, not the real kind, the kind that names the bad thing and doesn't turn it into a weather report. What did come was quiet. Days in a row. Mornings where the baby woke us at 6 and we didn't resent him because 6 o'clock is just a number when your mind is your own. Afternoons where the only appointment was a nap and a walk where I listened to my grandson discover his own hands. A month later, I saw Vivian at the farmer's market, standing at a stall holding tomatoes like she was auditioning for a memory of caring. She saw me and looked like she might speak, then didn't. We stood there, two women who had once congratulated each other on a white cake and confetti and a good family. We both knew that some families are costumes you unzip later. We both knew she had found a way to thread a needle and had sewn herself into a dress that didn't fit. I did not wish her pain. That surprised me. I simply wished us distance. I wished us the decency of never being in the same kitchen again. Sometimes at night, I play that first voice note. Not because I like to hurt. Because I like to remember the exact moment the ground under our feet split into, before we spoke and after. Then I delete it. Not erasing it from the world, no. It lives tucked safe where papers live, but giving us evenings where danger isn't allowed to chirp from a phone. People ask me, at the grocery store, at the post office where the clerk knows my zip code by heart, "How did you do it? How did you undo something so carefully made to make you doubt yourselves?" And I say, I made soup. I made copies. I made calls. I kept my voice even. I asked for help. And when someone tried to make us feel small with a file folder, I brought a bigger one. The story doesn't end with a judge banging a gavel and a choir singing hallelujah. It ends with my daughter sitting on my porch steps, her legs bare and her knees nicked from walking back into a life that lets you stumble. And my grandson sleeping inside, noisy like a little bulldozer. Safe like a secret finally allowed to be told. It ends with me making a list that looks silly now. Buy more dill, return Gloria's portable speaker, thank Dr. Jane with a peach pie, send Officer Morales the knitted baby blanket pattern. Breathe. It ends. Most nights, with the light from the stove bleeding soft into a kitchen that has forgiven me for the things I let stand too long. With the kettle complaining and my mother's old mug warming my hands. With Maya laughing at something small and dumb on the TV and Noah's foot thumping the crib like he's keeping time for our second chance. It ends with this: if your daughter sends you a message meant for her husband, and the words make your bones go quiet, believe the silence. It is telling you to move slow and strike true. It is handing you a folder and asking, are you ready to fill it? Are you ready to bless your family with the truth? I have never been more ready for anything. And I have never tasted a scone so sweet as the ones we ate the day the judge said, petition denied, and the world, with its heavy furniture and its stubborn doors, finally moved an inch to let us through.